So, in the midst of a spiritual war, and I'm trying to remember to just put total faith in God, and I know that He'll guide me in all my ways. But it's hard not to worry. I feel broken, scared. I know there's some people conspiring against me, and they've been planning and plotting for a while, and they're trying to destroy my life. Today I had to advertise my animals, trying to give them a good home. It's just heartbreaking to give up my animals, my guineas, my turkeys, and my rooster. But I feel like I have no other choice right now because I don't even know if I'm going to be able to stay in my home. I don't know what I'm going to do. So please pray for me. I've prepared myself as much as I could. It's not great, for just in case. And it makes me feel terrible. Someone else just told me the same thing that I've been reading. Sometimes God shuts a door and opens a new one. I don't know why these people have sought to destroy me. But I know that they hate me and that they've been plotting this for quite some time. Every time I try to stick up for someone, I put myself at risk. Every time I tried to keep somebody safe, I put myself at risk. But I knew that when I did it, and if I was scared, even of dying because of it, then I wouldn't have done it. So I know no matter what, that this life is temporary and that God is with me. And that I'll try to find some way to survive the best I can. I've had to do this before. I'm not whining about it. I'm just trying to do the best I can, and I'll find some way to make it. The thing that hurts me the most is having to give up my animals, and I might have to lose my farm. I might have to start over from nothing again. I wish I could. I wish I could tell you a joke. I guess the biggest joke is the people that are trying to destroy me right now have no idea that God's standing right behind them. And I know someday that they'll have to face the punchline. So I'm going to do some reading for us tonight. When absolutely everything collapses, then true faith is born. Elena Kucherenko. Isn't it ironic that God always points me in the right direction and talks to me in a deep and profound way. Seems like every time that I'm asking for his help, he shows me what to read. So I think he wants me to read this. The names have been changed at the request of the heroine. Anna grew up in a religious family. Her grandmother, mother, and father believed in God. In Soviet times, there were no functioning churches nearby, but people prayed often at home. She remembers this well, and as soon as churches began to open, they began to attend services. Anna didn't even have those teenage departures and faith retreats. She always liked the church and always knew that God loved her and that everything in her life will be fine. There will be a large, friendly family. She herself was alone with her parents. A kind husband, always a believer like her. Father, many children, and even more happiness. But none of this happened. There was pain. And if something began to be built, it immediately collapsed. And despair, despair, despair. And the questions, why? But when I found myself at the very bottom of the abyss over and over again, I felt the presence of God and his love more than ever. And she began to breathe. How can such a child live? Anna, she is not just a special mother. She is a person who has experienced so much that it would be enough for several destinies. And even a small part of her pain could break anyone. And she lives and thanks God. Surprisingly, in all this, she did not lose him, but gained him. And I thank him for the fact that with the birth of our Masha, who has Down syndrome, I discovered a whole world that used to exist somewhere in a parallel reality, and such people. And once everything was fine, however, Anna says that everything is fine now, but then it was good in the conventional sense. The first blow happened when she was a teenager. Her father left the family. It was a shock for her and her mother and for everyone who knew them, especially in church. Anya's dad had golden hands, and in addition to the fact that he went to services, at that time the church was already being restored nearby. He often repaired one thing or another there, and he went to another woman with 3 children, and one of her girls had cerebral palsy. I still don't know what really happened between my parents, Anna told me. I can only guess. I remember only indescribable pain. I was betrayed. There's also adolescence, but I'm very grateful to my mother. She was hurt too, but she never turned me against my father. It happens with adults, she said. Over time, I began to visit my dad to his new family. I'm now conveying this so briefly and easily, but behind this over time, so much thought and thought has been rethought. So much has been cried. Yes, it happens with adults. But we had a happy, believing family. My father was a believer. I dreamed that my future husband and I would be the same as my mom and dad, and so that my future children are loved as much as I am. And here it is. But anyway, I talked to my dad, his wife, her children, with that girl with cerebral palsy. At first, however, I did not understand how such a child could live. In my picture of the world, there were no disabled people before, but I saw how she was loved there, and I fell in love myself. And one more thing, it's surprising that I didn't lose faith then. It's God's mercy. It's God's mercy he has kept me. It would be better to get married and give birth to children. Life went on. Anya graduated from school, entered the institute. When she defended her diploma, her father died. Of course, it was a blow. Suddenly, the heart stopped, and that's it. Buried. We hugged his new wife with a girl with cerebral palsy, and then somehow we communicated less and less, and they stopped completely. Then I regretted it. And also, I've always wanted to get married, but when my dad left and then died, I wanted it twice, as if my own happy life was supposed to fix all the past. It's hard to explain, but that's how I felt. Anna saw many large families in the parish and was sure that she would have the same thing, and everyone around was sure. Someone, but she definitely shouldn't have stayed too long. Smart, beautiful, docile, a wonderful hostess, religious, pious. Her mother and grandmother told her so, and everyone in the church. This one will not stay too long. And she sat too long. All her friends and classmates were already married, gave birth to children, some more than one, and she was still in prison. I remember that her neighbor at the entrance had two purebred cats, Anna said. She took care of them as if they were little children, both exhibitions and hairdressers. And my mother once said it would be better to get married and give birth to children, and I thought the same. She came out when she was already under 40. She could not give birth to a child. She and her husband took them from an orphanage. And I was sitting 25. In my opinion at the time, she was an old maid, sat, then got a kitten to take care of at least someone. Probably they talked about me in the same way as about this neighbor. Of course, I prayed, but the Lord didn't seem to hear because it was necessary. 27, my grandmother died. Anna loved her, cried a lot. But maybe this is for the best. Her questions when and why. This is probably for the sins of your father, they became unbearable. And mother's eternal questioning eyes and sighs also unbearable. And this I hoped at least to take care of my grandchildren. And Anya kept thinking, what is he punishing for? For what? Maybe really for the sins of his father. And in the church, it was unbearable to hear behind my back, so good, but everyone is alone. But everything is the will of God. This everything is the will of God, was said as if it were already her, Anya's funeral. And then she met Sergei right in the temple. I saw him for the first time, but it was noticeable that he was a serious person and without a wedding ring, which is important. And Sergei immediately paid attention to Anya. I watched the entire service. The next Sunday, he came again and greeted her. A week later, he walked home. Don't miss it, daughter. He's a good man, a believer, my mother said. The Lord heard my motherly prayers. The wedding took place 3 months after the first meeting. Although the priest told me to wait, no one knows anything about a man. Where did he come from and why? He did not come to confession saying there's a spiritual father, but my mother was in a hurry. She wanted all the grandchildren. The clock is ticking, and the girl herself understood that this might be her last chance. And I wanted to get married. But why did I want to? Well, you have questions, Anya told me. I've already explained it to myself, but in general, who doesn't want to? Although maybe someone does not want to, but it is necessary. Well, that's how we think. And girls marry not out of great love, but because they just want to get married, or even worse, that this is how it should be. You should have gotten pregnant. Sergei really wanted children, as he said, heirs. True, there was not much to inherit from him. Before the wedding, he lived in a dormitory where the parents were, and whether they were alive, he did not say. He waved it off. And then they settled in the apartment of Anya's late grandmother, and somehow quickly in the very first days, he became the master there. But Anya thought about this later when everything happened, and she wondered, how did she not find out anything about him? And how could such a person be in the temple? But as the saying goes, thou hast come to the hospital, and if some hypersensitive person can enter the church, why can't someone like him? When the first cycle after the wedding came, Sergei was offered by his wife. You were supposed to get pregnant, but you lied to me. Lied. Daughter, how is it? Not yet. My mother was worried. Anya began to fear intimacy. What if nothing happens again and Sergei, even during these moments, behaved as if threatening? If it doesn't work out again, it will be bad. It also happens it turns out well, or it was Anya's fantasies. But she definitely felt some kind of danger. After the third cycle came, Sergei beat her. He beat skillfully. He did not touch her face so that no one noticed, and then he often beat her for everything. Anya could not believe it. It doesn't happen like that, and if it happens, then definitely not with her. Therefore, I was silent. Everything was too wild to voice it. Then I couldn't stand it. I told my mother, be patient, daughter. Divorce is shameful. What will people say? We already had it. You better give birth quickly. He will calm down and become kinder. Probably my mother wanted the best. She loved her daughter very much. I definitely wanted to, but she was wrong. Or was it broken by its own history? Lord, where are you? Anya became pregnant 6 months later, but Sergei did not become kinder. For some reason, he did not believe that it was from him. He beat his wife like that. After another bullying, she began to bleed. She called an ambulance for herself because her husband left home, leaving her alone. Miscarriage. It was so scary and implausible that Anya could not believe it. And if everything was not happening to her like when my father left, although all her short marriage with Sergei was as if it was not with her, and then she returned to reality and howled like a wolf. Lord, where are you? Why? Everything was falling apart. It was collapsing from the very beginning, and here it is, the end. But it turned out that this was not all, although it seems to be much worse. When Anya returned home from the hospital, Sergei tried to beat her again for the fact that I couldn't even stand it. But it did not work. She grabbed a knife. If you touch me, I'll kill you. He looked at her in surprise. She surprised herself. He slammed the door and left. Anya hoped forever. But forever it happened differently. Sergei was imprisoned for harassment of an underage girl and for something else. It was a dark story. Daughter, what a shame. Maybe you didn't love him enough, Mom asked quietly. It would be better if she were silent. And Anya wanted to lie down and die because it was really a terrible, implausible shame. She was saved by the priest from the church where she met Sergei, to whom her mother told everything. She now went to another closer to home, and my husband didn't go anywhere, although they even got married. And from the day that he first beat her, she kept away from everyone, and she did not share anything. It was embarrassing. And people thought that everything was fine with them. One of the neighbors even said, "You're lucky, Anya, what a husband you got." Sergei knew how to please, and how many such families are thought to be doing well. She sobbed on the father's shoulder. He stroked her head and wiped away her tears. Honey, why were you silent? I'm going to pray very, very hard for you. Just like that, I wanted a family. I wanted everything to be fine. She wanted to compensate for her father's departure. She prayed, kept herself clean, and married a psycho, sadist, and rapist, and she lost her child. I did not want to live, but probably the priest prayed strongly for me because with something I didn't even know what, with the back of my head, I felt that the Lord was holding me and not letting go. But I had many questions for him. Why is that? I did everything right. Do you remember that you wrote somewhere? We think that if we fast, if we read the rule, then some kind of decisive ghost has been placed in our lives. Okay, not ghost, but it should be at least remotely human. But not this whole nightmare and thriller. Even the father's departure against this background was humane. But you know, when absolutely everything collapses, when there is nothing left at all, only pain, then real faith is born. Because without it, a person will die. And I grabbed at this flimsy, broken faith of mine, and most importantly, I felt that when everything earthly betrays you, then the Lord will never betray you. It was a complicated feeling. I blamed him and clung to him anyway. I lived on. Every day is a gift. 3 years have passed. During this time, Sergei died in the colony sick. Shortly before his death, he wrote a letter to Anya. He knew that he would die. He asked for forgiveness. She didn't answer. She couldn't. It was hard for me to forgive him, she admitted. I kept thinking, would he ask for forgiveness if he were healthy? Any person, even the worst, is scared. And he did it not for me, but for himself. Why do I need his apologies? Would they return my life, health, and child? Yes, all this took less than a year, but it was as if my life had been stolen. Now I regret that I did not forgive. He, of course, is to blame. He was also a criminal, but maybe he really repented, and my fault or misfortune is that I got married, not out of great love, but because I wanted to get married, because it is necessary. And also I realized this much later. I lived without gratitude to God for what I have. I thought that my dream would come true. I would have a husband, a child, and then I would be happy. And today it seems to be a preparation for a happy future. But every day is already a gift from God, for which you should be grateful. And another thought, you need to be self sufficient. You need to be able to live and rejoice, even if there are no people around, because every man is a lie, and because there is a God who will not betray you. After some time, Enya lost her passport. She accidentally left her bag at the bus stop. No one handed it over. And when she received a new one, for some reason, they did not put a stamp on her marriage. But I was glad, as if I started my life from scratch, as if this horror dirt did not exist. But then I also exchanged my grandmother's apartment for another one in another district. This new one was smaller, but everything turned out quickly. I wanted to escape, and she found a new job. I have such a specialty that, in principle, it was not difficult. After those 3 years, Anna met Kirill. You can't build happiness on lies. He was 5 years older, but she is no longer a girl either. Not a churchgoer, but as they say, sympathetic. Simple, good natured, but with sad eyes. He had a history of drama. The ex-wife had an abortion. I was pregnant with twins and did not want such a load. Kirill said that she didn't want children at all, Anya said. Therefore, when she was diagnosed with infertility, she was even happy. And he really wanted to. On this basis, we became closer and we talked. That a family is necessarily when there are children, and without them it is just a union of two egoists. And then he proposed to me. At first I was scared, still experience. But then I made up my mind. They got married quietly. They did not get married. Kirill was not ready for such a radical step. And Anya probably was not. The wedding with Sergei was not a guarantee of happiness, and they began to wait for a child. My husband did not get offended and did not get angry when it did not work out over and over again. She said, next time it'll work. But the next one, nothing happened. Hope was replaced by despair and hope again. Prayers are tears and despondency. She began to fear intimacy again, and slowly and almost imperceptibly, she and Kirill began to move away from each other. Anya went to the doctors. The diagnosis of infertility as a result of that miscarriage was like a control shot in the head for her. She said, it seems that all the horror is over, a new life, sighed, and then again, oh, Lord, for what? Where are you? She was afraid to tell her husband about it, but she had to. Surprisingly, he did not go anywhere as she feared. He even supported her. It's okay, science doesn't stand still. They decided on artificial insemination. We went to the doctor together. Anya was glad. She simply forgot that everything was written in medical records. You were pregnant, the doctor began. Kirill got up and left. He didn't even hear about the miscarriage. You had an abortion too. He didn't ask, but blamed Anya in the street when she caught up with him. She said that there was a terrible story in her life, Sergei, the miscarriage. And Kirill did not believe. It just doesn't happen. You lied to me. I don't believe you. You had an abortion just like her. Therefore, you cannot have children. You lied to me all the same. And they got divorced. The second test, Anya told me. But I didn't blame God either or Kirill. I was to blame myself. You can't lie. The father of lies is the devil. You can't build happiness on lies. If I had told the truth, perhaps you would not have left, or you would have left immediately, and I would have not have been so painful. I was left alone again without a husband, without children. But here I did everything wrong. Although when she seemed to be doing the right thing, she was also left alone and with a black hole in her soul. No, I have never been alone. God is always with me. Even in these terrible moments, she felt God. It seemed to be that this is real faith. This may be our last words. Anya began to drink from melancholy and loneliness. At first, a little, sometimes in the evenings. This did not interfere with either work or Orthodox life. Then more. I missed the service a couple of times, although for me personally it seems surprising that she still went to church at all. I was half dead, but somewhere deep in my soul, I still felt that without God I would turn into some kind of ashes. Then her mother died, the only person close to her. Not counting the priest from the church where they used to go, she died unexpectedly and stupidly. If death can be stupid, she was hit by a cyclist in late autumn. Probably the last cyclist of the season. No, not to death. She got up, shook herself off, walked and stumbled over a rock. She hit her temple on the curb and instantly left. I wonder if she would have survived if not for the cyclist. Shortly before that, Anya and her mother had a fight. The woman saw that her daughter had began to abuse and tried in every possible way to stop her as best she could. You won't help yourself with that, and you'll drive me into the coffin. Your marriages have cost me dearly. Anya's marriages cost her dearly. And didn't your mother want grandchildren? I'm afraid you'll outlive me, she said. Afraid, don't be afraid, the mother replied quietly. They didn't talk for a couple of weeks, and then the strange, ridiculous death, as if the answer to this is, I'm afraid. The funeral service for my mother was held in the church of Anya's youth. That father, someone did not even recognize Anya right away. Troubles leave an imprint on the face. Someone decided that was out of grief. After all, her mother left and she looked terrible from everything at once, and the feeling of guilt. Every time we say something in the heat of the moment, you need to understand that these may be our last words to this person, Anya told me. And this close and dear person can leave with these very words after him, and nothing can be changed. She cried in an embrace with a cat, the one that she got before her first marriage, and then the cat died. She fell out of the window when she forgot to close it. She got drunk like she had never gotten drunk before, woke up in the hospital. Neighbors called an ambulance when she lost consciousness in the yard and lay in the snow for a long time. The union of two loving people. Then there was everything, pneumonia, nervous breakdown. The doctors did not know what to grab onto. Counseled by a psychologist, a neurologist. The neurologist was very strange. He was younger than Anna, and all the time he came from another department and found new diagnoses in her. Although the main one was pneumonia, and he said that after discharge she finally needed to contact him for advice. She was not discharged from this hospital when the time came, precisely on his recommendation. Of course, she did not turn to him for advice. There was no time for that. At least start living somehow. But she found it herself. Good afternoon, Anna. This is Pavel Viktorovich. The bell rang suddenly. You were supposed to come to the hospital to see me and you didn't. This is very rash of you. You have this, that, and that. How did you find my number? Yes, there's one in the hospital. She didn't go anyway, and a week later the neurologist called and made an appointment at a cafe. In a very strict and unobjectionable voice, and she could not refuse, and a year later they got married. I resisted for a long time. I was afraid, Anya said. I didn't believe that all this was possible. Pasha said that he immediately fell in love when he saw me in the hospital, and I couldn't understand it was possible to fall in love with me, such a person, drinking, lying on the street, terrible as a mortal sin, a useless, fruitless loser. I immediately said that I would not have children, and about ex-husbands, and he said that it was beautiful, that he doesn't care about my past and the children. A family is not necessarily children. These are, first of all, a husband and a wife who love each other. I remember Kirill, a union of two egoists. It turns out to be a union of two loving people, but in the end, Pasha achieved his goal. At first, however, I reduced to him that priest from the first church. He said with a smile, that will do, and it's important. Pasha was not a believer, but for my sake, he went to the priest for his verdict, and that's how it all happened. Unconditional love. Anya told me she thanked God for everything that happened to her, and even for Sergei and Kirill. Perhaps I needed all this in order to eventually meet my loving and beloved person. That was my way to it. Even a drunk in a snowdrift, it turned out to be that this was also a path. A loving Lord even uses evil for good. Even my mother's departure, my guilt before her. No, it doesn't mean that everything was fine, that I was right, and that my guilt was gone. There was just the realization that even through sins and our own filth, He is trying to lead us to light and happiness. And from this you understand what a non-entity you really are. But even such a God loves you and cares for you. He loves the lowest sinner. This probably is unconditional love, not for anything but because you are. 4 years later, Anna became pregnant. She was closer to 40. She was not treated, did nothing, it just happened, and that's it. She couldn't believe it. I did and did tests. I went for an ultrasound for a fee free of charge. I donated blood. No mistake, she was pregnant. I am happy and happy as never before. And Paul was just as happy, although he had felt good before. When a man truly loves, he accepts any woman, even with her infertility. True male love is also unconditional, like God's, and women's too. Throughout her pregnancy, Anna seemed to be flying on wings. Every day was a miracle for her, and she knew, and she kept dreaming of how they would walk with a stroller, raise their long-awaited child, and no one in the world would be happier than them. As soon as he is born, he will scream, and they will put him on her stomach, and she will suffocate with love. As they give it to my husband, and he will stand with him confused and defenseless, like all men at this moment, and then he will love her even more. She also gave him a son. They knew it was going to be a boy. Everything was ready at home. Everything was blue, lace, balloons, flowers. She went to the maternity hospital to meet her dream. No, then everything was fine. No one died. My son was born absolutely healthy and in principle very easily, which is surprising for such late first births. When it was put on Anna's stomach, she was overwhelmed by the very long-awaited happiness that makes you suffocate. And then Pavel held the child in his arms with a stupid expressions on his face, not his son's. And then Anya began to have postpartum depression. It would seem that she had everything: a beloved husband, a long-awaited child. All dreams came true, all horrors were in the past. But suddenly another nightmare covered her. When I first got pregnant, I promised God that if I gave birth safely, I would never ask him for anything again. I would only thank him. And I thought that only love and joy lay ahead, and it was as if I had been hit on the head with a log, and my life turned from colorful to black. I just cried. I didn't know why. There was sticky, dirty melancholy in my soul. Nothing objectively bad happened, but it seemed to me that I was in hell. This is probably how it will be in real hell. There is nothing like bad, but there is nothing worse than this: total abandonment of God. And you don't want to live, and you can't die, although I was already dead. And then the aggression began. It was as if I hated my husband, my son, and my motherhood. I wanted to get rid of it. What would I be left with? I do not know. And then there was only strength left to lie down. There was no question of any prayer. I couldn't even whisper, Lord, have mercy, to myself. Or I didn't want to. From the beginning, Pavel insisted on the help of a psychiatrist. He himself advised something, but I didn't listen to him. The priest whom my non-church husband brought to our home told me that we needed specialists and that there was nothing to be ashamed of in what was happening to me. His mother also once had postpartum depression, but I didn't listen to her either. I agreed one night as if someone was in my head, and if you jump out of the window, this nightmare will end immediately. But then it was as if someone took me by the scruff of the neck again and held me back. Not someone, but the Lord. He was there, I'm sure. Anna underwent treatment. Thank God she managed to defeat depression. Colors, love, tenderness, and joy have returned to life, and gratitude to God. But again, I was tormented by the feeling of guilt. I missed the first beautiful months of my son's life. This can never be replenished, neither for him nor for me. And how much did my beloved husband have to endure? There was not a single word of reproach on his part, and there still is not. He also calmed me down. He said that it was just a disease and anyone can get sick. I won't be tormented by guilt if, for example, I go to the hospital with the flu. Thank God that everything is over. My unbelieving Pasha told me I thanked him. But there were also questions. Why did this have to happen? I don't know. Your child has Down syndrome. They lived on happily in love. The son grew up as a beautiful boy. He and her husband became closer and closer every day. Their love only grew stronger over time. Most of all, they loved weekends, when you could spend 2 whole days together, the church where the husband accompanied them with their child, and he himself waited in the parish cafe, walk, cinema, theater, or just lie at home. The main thing is together. And the happiest time for them was, oddly enough, the pandemic, again because they are together. Pavel, of course, worked. He is a doctor. He's also in the red zone, but when he, his wife, and his son fell ill, thank God, easily and spent several weeks in quarantine. It was real happiness. It's even strange how many married couples divorced at this time, precisely because they could not stay all day within four walls. During COVID, Anna became pregnant the second time. When the first time was a great miracle, and now she was well over 40. I didn't wait, I didn't dream. They already had a son, and there will be no more, the doctors said. But here are two stripes. It was both scary and joyful in gratitude to God. This pregnancy was more difficult. Firstly, it is already a serious age. Secondly, shortly before her, she had the same COVID, and probably the body was not yet fully recovered. Several times she lay down for preservation, drank large quantities of some medications, but carried it to the due date and safely went to the birth. Everything was like the first time. They put the baby on her stomach. She was overwhelmed by a feeling of great happiness, although she almost died during childbirth. So it seemed to her it was very hard. With the same stupid smile, Pavel held his youngest son in his arms, and then the doctors stood around the baby for a long time and whispered about something, and then more doctors were called. Your child has signs of Down syndrome, they said. It was plausible as many previous events from her life. Anna did an ultrasound, all the required tests, everything was fine. Although she was already accustomed to the fact that something often happened in her life, for some reason this particular development of events didn't occur to her. It didn't occur to Pavel either, because his face was even more stupid than when he held his son in his arms the first time. It was as if he had been hit with all his might. He seems to be standing, not falling, and his eyes are open, but he does not understand at all who he is, where and what is happening around him, and just in case, a smile on his face. Then he told me that as a neurologist, he immediately saw something suspicious. But I hoped that I was mistaken, and most of all, I was afraid that I would have depression again, and there was no way out of it. Anna said, because the first time I went out into a happy world, and where to go now? Into the downism of the child. He will not disappear anywhere, and I was scared of it. I even find it difficult to say I was more afraid of possible depression or Down syndrome. But there was no depression, of course. Anna sobbed in the maternity hospital. She mourned her life, which was always messed up. I was worried that my husband might leave. People often leave the same families. For some reason, she thought so. Don't cry, come with me, the old nurse said on the second day. Anya barely trailed after her, and she poured her vodka a little, just a little. But it even seemed to let her go. By the way, the nurses also poured me a drink in the maternity hospital. My son suckled weakly. He could not feed himself. Stagnation began. Her breasts were stone, pain, tears, antibiotics. And there was no depression. I don't know why it didn't happen, Anna told me. It seems that God himself commanded, but everything was within the norm. I know for sure that in those days, that girl with cerebral palsy constantly popped up in my head. The daughter of my father's new wife. I remember how everyone loved her, probably still does, how I played with her, and somehow my heart warmed. Now I understand that even my father's departure to that family was able to be turned into good for me. I already knew what special children were and that you can be happy with them. Although, of course, the adoption took time, but now I'm saying and understanding. Do you know that what was the main thing? I remembered the words of Christ, without me you can do nothing. And somehow I felt that if I put everything on God now, everything would be fine. There's no need to rush anywhere. There's no need to wait for anything, to search, to reason how it will be. The Lord can do anything, and we can do nothing without him. Let him rule, and I will live here and now. It's good now, and I thank God. What is good? No one died. That's good. Paul received a special son in an interesting way. Firstly, there was no God in his picture of the world. At least then, therefore, he did not expect any help from above. And secondly, he was and is a neurologist, which Down syndrome passed back into the institute. Was it not only he who was lucky, or then everyone was taught this way, but he could imagine a little more terrible than this diagnosis for children. Severe mental retardation, aggression, language, drool, that's how he saw them. Mostly, however, in thoughts because he's an adult doctor, and for some reason I have not encountered such people in my practice. And here a child is like a child, Anil said with a smile. Well, little narrow-eyed, well, a little breaking, but he understands everything, smiles, blows bubbles with joys. He pees, poops, rattles, everything is like the elder. For Pasha, the time of amazing discoveries began, both human and professional. His parents are also neurologists, by the way. They were also surprised. Wow, everything is like with people in general. 3 neurologists for one little boy, but he sat on their necks and dangled their legs. Everything is blown away from it. The eldest is even jealous, but we do not leave him either. Thank God for everything. And that's how they live now, after all her troubles. Anya finally found the long-awaited happiness. Why it was necessary to go in this way, she cannot say. But the main thing is that she learned from all her experiences that you need to live here and now and rely on God and thank Him for everything, because you don't know what will happen tomorrow and whether it will even be. You think that today is bad, but it can also be very good. It often seems that the Lord does not hear our prayers. But His silence can be His answer and His love. He'll give you everything in due time, and it will definitely lead us to the light, even through the horror and pain, because He loves us. And I still often think, so we dream, if I have this, I will be happy. If it happens, I will be even happier. But I don't remember who wrote that happiness does not depend on circumstances. It is within us. If not happiness, then at least peace. And we can find ourselves in completely different circumstances because there are no guarantees here on earth. If you are a believer, this does not mean that the ghost on your life, but God is near. This is the main thing. He can even make troubles a springboard to something good. By the way, if I hadn't chased happiness, maybe there wouldn't have been so much pain in my life. Although on the other hand, if it were not for this pain, I would not have come to the happiness that I have now. The best gift from God. The best gift from God. I don't want to say that I don't appreciate what came before Him. A husband and an eldest son are also great and no less gifts. But the youngest is like cement that finally held our family together. And he taught me to live differently, not to chase ghosts, but to rejoice here and now. Because you can be happy only now. Apparently, everything that happened to me before he was born did not teach me. Lord, thank you for everything, for being near. Forgive me, brothers and sisters. Thank you for joining me. I love you all so much. God bless you all. Good night.